माननीय सांसद श्री तेजस्वी सूर्या जी।
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak in support of the demand of grants, the Ministry of Education. Madam, this year has posed a very unique and an unprecedented challenge to the whole world because we had to face a once-in-a-century pandemic. Across the world, schools, universities, and institutions of higher learning suffered greatly, and students in most universities across the world, most schools across the world, had to discontinue their education for a period of 1 year. In most advanced countries, children were not allowed to take examinations, and they were made to repeat the whole year because they couldn't face the examinations because of classes not taking place. The sole exception to this global reality was India, because under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as soon as the pandemic started in the country, digital education and giving education through every mode possible, whether it was through TV, whether it was through radio, whether it was through podcasts, or every such digital medium was utilized and ensured that those schools were stopped, learning did not stop in India. In that direction, I want to, at the very outset, congratulate our Prime Minister as well as the Minister for Education, Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal ji, for unprecedented leadership in this COVID period. I would just want to recollect some very important steps that were taken during this time, Madam. Under the PM Vidya Diksha program, which was launched in May 2020 under the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, a digital infrastructure for education was created. Many members were rightly raising questions on how many people, how many students has this reached out to? How many students in a country as diverse as ours could benefit out of this? It is a matter of great pride, Madam, to place on record that this platform, the PM eVidya Diksha platform, which is based on artificial intelligence and is highly scalable, has since the lockdown received 1,000 crore page hits and over 40 crore scans of video content. This is the highest ever in the world. It is a first initiative as well as the highest reach initiative, and the special congratulations must go to the Minister of Education for bringing this pioneering leadership. Madam, at the same time, textbooks in 31 Indian languages with QR code embedded literature and material was given to more than 45 crore elementary school children in the country. More than 3,800 textbooks of various grades of states and union territories, including over 350 textbooks of NCERT and 15 Gyanvani FM radio channels. All of these were incorporated to ensure that learning did not stop during the pandemic. Madam, at the very same time, the government also ensured that examinations were also held on time. Perhaps India is one of the only countries in the world today which has held all examinations, including school examinations and the examinations to the highest learning institutions, universities, on time during the pandemic. And for that reason, again, the Prime Minister as well as this government deserve special recognition and special praise. Even during this COVID pandemic, this country formulated and adopted the National Education Policy 2020. Madam Speaker, the National Education Policy 2020 is going to be the most important, most comprehensive, as well as the most far-reaching reform ever made in history of India. It is directly going to affect the largest number of population, especially the population of young Indians across the country. This policy is reviewing India's education policy after 1986, after a long period of 36 years. I would just want to use this opportunity to place on record a few observations on the national education policy and how this is going to transform the future of this country. Madam Speaker, India had a very hoary tradition of educational institutions. Before the British came, we had excellent universities, the Nalanda, the Takshashila. All of these universities were centers of excellence for around the world. It was attracting students from different parts of the world. Unfortunately, from the time of the British, the Macaulayan education systematically destroyed the very spirit of indigenous education. After 1947, we had a golden opportunity to set this record straight and revisit the strength of the Indian education, traditional Indian education system. However, post 1947, the Jawaharlal Nehru and the Maulana Azad duo did not let the Macaulayan form of education in India stop. They did not reform this education, but only continued the solid British education system in letter and spirit. For the first time in India's independent history, in 2020, this government, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, has ushered in the national education policy, which is a root and branch transformation of the Indian education policy and puts a full stop to the Macaulayan draconian system of education. Let me just put on record 2 or 3 important facets of this education policy. Madam, the primary education system, most of us are educated members of parliament. We have seen from close schooling and primary education. The primary education system in India was woefully afflicted by 2 very important problems. One was the problem and challenge of enrollment of students, ensuring accessibility and affordability of primary education. The second was ensuring early education. This important policy for the first time recognizes that 85% of mental makeup and growth of children take place from the age of 1 year to 6 years, and therefore emphasizes on starting education well before age 6. This is a monumental step in the right direction that this national education policy is taking. Madam Speaker, the other important step this education policy is taking is in reframing the pedagogy. If I were interested in most of the schools, including me when I was in school, most of us have faced this problem. Suppose a student is interested in sports, or suppose a student is also interested in art or music, it was all considered to be extracurricular or co-curricular activities and was not given as much emphasis on, say, as learning mathematics or science. This deprived a lot of children who were extremely gifted, from pursuing those fields because they were considered non-curriculum or they were considered extracurricular. This education policy therefore makes this very important correction by removing this artificial distinction between curricular and non-curricular pursuit of education, and places everything on the same pedestal and gives opportunity to young Indians, especially school-going Indians, to pursue all those talents which they are good at. This in the coming years will result in a very important measure, madam, because tomorrow's Indians will pursue this path of theirs, the choice of theirs, talent of theirs, and will ensure that India will perform extremely well at global competitions, whether it is sports or otherwise. This is a very important step in that direction. Madam, we all know how we have passed our examinations. Our education system focused more on rote learning, on memorizing answers than understanding concepts, which is why many young Indians across the country, you will find many of them wearing t-shirts which said, "I was born intelligent, but education spoiled me." Because in schools, focus was given on by-hearting answers than understanding concepts and arriving at conceptual clarity. For the first time, this education policy rightly makes a move and towards ensuring that we learn less content, but learn how to learn. Because learning how to learn is more important than gathering information in an age where digitally any kind of information is easily accessible and available. This is also going to change greatly the coaching culture in India. Every student in any educational institution will emphasize more on which guide to buy, which guidebook to learn, which coaching class to attend. In this country, guidebooks have more important than textbooks. Coaching centers have more important than classroom lectures, because conceptual learning was not emphasized as much as rote learning. This very important lacunae of the education system, especially in primary education, has been removed. Madam Speaker, the other big challenge that this country faced was in the higher education segment. Due to stringent regulation, higher education system faced a severe shortage of supply. So much so that for one available medical seat, there were at least 15 to 20,000 people applying for that seat. This created a system where capitation fees was highly charged, corruption was resulting in corruption in higher education, so much so that a young Indian coming from a middle class family or a lower middle class family could not even dream of getting a medical seat, because a medical seat was literally auctioned in this country. If we go outside and find out, medical seats are auctioned for 50 lakh rupees, 1 crore rupees. This is the kind of artificial supply-demand problem that was created because competition was not allowed. The whole higher education sector was not allowed for free players to operate. Madam, it is of great importance to note that after 2014, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, capacity addition in higher education has been an area of extreme importance. Since 2014, just the number of MBBS seats alone, madam, has increased by 48% from around 54,000 in India in 2014 to 80,000 seats in 2020. In a matter of 6 years, we have increased this by 48%. The PG seats, PG radiology, PG gynecology, these are auctioned, literally sold outside for 1 crore, 2 crores, making it a pipe dream for young Indians to achieve medical education. But today, PG seats have increased by 79% from 24,000 in 2014 to 54,000 in 2020, madam. This again is due to the Prime Minister's leadership. In 2014, madam, the number of medical colleges in India was only 381. By end of 2020, there are 541 medical colleges in India, a jump of 50% in the number of medical colleges in India. This is just an indication of how even in higher education, capacity building has become a very, very important progress step towards this. Madam, while we are here, I just want to bring on record one very important aspect, madam. This national education policy focuses on local language, mother tongue education, and local context-based education. Madam Speaker, I come from Karnataka. My mother tongue is Kannada. There are many parliamentarians here who are from different parts of the country. Unfortunately, during all our formative years in school, we learned more about Shakespeare than we learned about our own writers. We learned more about Scotland and the British history than we learned more about Tanjavur and the temples of the south. Madam, on this point alone, the great educationist Ananda Kumaraswamy, criticizing the problem of the English education in 1909, said this, and I will quote, "The most crushing indictment of the English education is that it destroys all capacity for the appreciation of Indian culture. Speak to the ordinary Indian graduate on the ideals of the Mahabharata. He will hasten to display his knowledge of Shakespeare. Talk to him of religious philosophy. You will find that he is an atheist of the crude type common in Europe a generation ago. Not only has he no religion, but he is as lacking in philosophy as the average Englishman. Talk to him of Indian art. It is news to him that such a thing exists. Ask him to translate a letter written in his own mother tongue. He does not know it. He is indeed a stranger in his own land. Of all Indian problems, the educational is the most difficult and most tragic. The quote ends here. Madam Speaker, this education policy has emphasized learning in mother tongue. Coming from South, where regional languages, whether it is Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, it is unfortunate, madam, that for such a long time in this country, generations of generations Indians were judged, their intelligence, their capability was based on understanding and testing their capacity for English language and not on the capacity of what they indeed knew. This was a tragedy of the Indian education system. This is being corrected for the first time. The second aspect, madam, is that encouragement of learning of different Indian languages is being done. I want to learn Punjabi. I want to learn Bengali. This was not allowed. For the first time in India's independent history, all across the country, under the 3-language policy, 2 Indian languages from whichever part of the state is being allowed to be learnt, madam. This is not only going to encourage regional languages, but is also going to give strength in the coming days to promoting, preserving and writing new literature, especially technical literature in our own mother tongue. I want to use this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to ask people from the DMK, to ask people from other political parties who say that the BJP is a party of the Hindi parties. Hindutva is not Hindi. Hindutva means respecting and promoting all regional languages, culture and education. It is the first time in India's history that a government under the leadership of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is encouraging and promoting all regional Indian languages, promoting regional languages, mother tongue education. No government in the history of independent India has done this before. This is a very important prospect. Madam, I want to conclude, madam, just with one. Madam Speaker, I will conclude in 1 minute, madam, in just 1 minute. Madam, this budget specifically speaks of the National Research Foundation. Madam, for any country to progress, especially a country with a young population, we need to focus on research and development. Our budget this time speaks of the National Research Foundation and allocates 50,000 crores over 5 years, which will ensure that national thrust areas for research will be compensated adequately and young Indians will perform cutting-edge research in state-of-the-art laboratories and bring in new technology, madam. In all, madam, I would want to conclude by saying this. A new India can be built only on the foundation of a new education policy. This new education policy focuses on the development of the Indians' economic, spiritual, social and constitutional morality. In a Subhashita in Sanskrit, it was said, what are the core values of education? Vidya dadati vinayam, vinaya dadati patratam, patratva dhanamapnoti, dhanat dharmam tatas sukham. This was the meaning. It meant education must give humility. Humility will build character. Character will lead to raising of earning, to creation of wealth in the righteous and ethical manner, which will lead to happiness of society. This national education policy is based on foundational principles of Indian indigenous thought, which will usher in a new India, where India will be technically advanced and Indian education will be the best in the world and second to none. I congratulate the Honorable Minister for Education and our Prime Minister for ushering in these very, very important and vital reforms. Thank you, madam, for this opportunity.